Are
Were there
you in
people
the,
in the audience that left that should be called back?
yes, we're taking care of that now. It does look like we are live streaming again. Over to you, Councillor Quest.
Okay, thank you. At this point in the meeting, I'd like to move the motion.
Okay.
That's the recommendation, sorry. I move that bylaw number 700, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Building Bylaw number 489, 2019, amendment bylaw number 700, 2025, be read a second time as amended. And that bylaw number 700, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Building Bylaw number 489, 2019, amendment bylaw number 700, 2025, be read a third time.
Okay, moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, raise your hand, say nay. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Sorry, I wanted to negative vote on that.
Councillor Getty in opposition. Moving to 8.1 in staff reports, introduction to an application for a development variance permit at 1771 Arbutus Point Road. Xerxes Zhao, our planner one, joining us here today.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Waiting for the screen. Awesome.
We try again. It says your screen right, but it's.
Oh, there it is. Let's start it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's saved in the. You're just crashed. Yeah, froze. Okay. Bear with us, Mary.
Yep.
Can you use, Sophie, can you cancel the screen share?
Oh, there it is. That's something.
Well.
Everybody, all the others. He's working on it. He's working on it. There you go.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm here to introduce the development variance permit application for 1771 Argus Point Road. So yeah, I'll just start with a quick introduction to DP. It's within the setback to C. The structures being varied are retaining wall with a associated stairway. The retaining wall is 1.16 meters. From a site visit from the building inspector in March 2025, they noted that two retaining walls were built over the 0.6 meters in height allowed in the zoning bylaw. Notifications were sent out to neighboring properties on October 31st. And the applicant has done a survey of the stairway and retaining wall. Staff did a site visit on September 23rd of the site and structures. You can see as well, applicants have also submitted photographs as part of their application. staff requested from the applicants condition and impact assessment. And this was submitted to staff on Friday, November 7th. The condition and impact assessment included a restoration plan that calls for planting of native plants in the affected area, as well as removal of the invasive Scotch broom. So staff recommend that notice be given that DVP 2025-0141 be considered by council at the meeting on December 8th. But
Okay. Thank you to the planner. I'll look to council for any questions or comments before looking at the recommendation to provide notice. Councilor Fast.
Thank you. My question relates to the crown strip that runs between its land, that runs between the property and the high tide line. I'm looking at your Schedule A, which shows the crown strip there. I believe it's zoned G3 or something. And so it's not residential and it's not, it's provincial. And I'm wondering, do we know it's public land, it's provincial land? And we know that the province has signed this land use agreement with Squamish Nation. I don't know much more detail about that, but I'm just wondering, should we be providing permission for something, or is there a lease across the Crown land?
I'll jump in and answer that through the chair. There's not actually this area of Bowen does not have the crown strip. What's showing up in the Schedule A is just a mismatch between the property layer information and our zoning layer. Shows like a mismatch between where that end of the layer is, but there's not actually that same crown strip that exists in some parts of Bowen.
Okay.
So their property line ends at the natural boundary. It's just showing
the
that.
high tide line natural boundary.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. That helps a lot. And I'm just my questions for the planner are finished and I'll come in with the comments later.
Not seeing any further questions. Maybe I'll look for somebody to move the motion or move the recommendation, please. Councilor Morris.
I would move that notice be given that council will be considering the issuance of development variance permit DVP 2025-0143 for the variance of maximum height of retaining wall to be varied for 1771 Arbutus Point Road at the December 8th, 2020 November. At the December 8th, 2025 meeting of council. The council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of development variance permit DVP 2025-0143 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 1771 Arbutus Point Road.
Moved by Councilor Morris, seconded by Councilor Saunders. I believe that was Councilor Jurgensen looking to get his hand into second.
Yes, correct.
Councilor Fast, followed by Councilor Wade.
Thank you. I noted in, I guess I do have another question for the planner. In the environmental report, it mentions that this was unpermitted construction, and I didn't hear that in your report, but I guess maybe it doesn't make any difference. What permission is needed before somebody does hardening of the shoreline in this matter? Would there be some kind of permit required?
Through the chair, this falls in our awkward height, I guess I would say, in that anything over than 0.6 meters, which is about 2 feet, retaining wall is not permitted in the setback to the sea, but the trigger for a building permit is 1.5 meters, like a 5-foot retaining wall. So in that in between, it's like our zoning does not allow it, but a building permit is not required.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing is that we don't have any regulations about hardening the shoreline.
Through the chair, we would not allow the retaining wall within the setback to the sea.
Oh,
So it's not allowed by zoning. It's just, it doesn't trigger a building permit. requirement. It's
Okay.
below our threshold to require a building permit.
So they wouldn't have to come in for any kind of permit.
Correct. And so, I mean, in this case, you're right, you know, it was built without permits. And my recollection is we did receive complaints about construction happening. That's why the building inspector initially went out and noted that it was below the height that after notifying the property, went out and verified it was below the height that required a building permit, but was within the, but did exceed the amount we allowed in the zoning. We have similar circumstances with, for example, like you can build a 10 square meter accessory building without a building permit. But you can't build it in the setback to the sea, and you can't build it, depending on its height, you can't build it within setbacks to neighbors or the road, or you may exceed your maximum number of buildings that you allow in that zone, but you don't require a building permit for it. So in theory, you can just build it. It's just we won't comply with the zoning, and then you'll get in trouble through zoning, but not the building bylaw.
So maybe this is more of an education thing, but it doesn't particularly, this is an example of, okay, thank you. Then my comment is, how many houses are within 100 meters? Because it's a big bay.
Roughly 17 houses.
Within 100 meters.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fast. Councillor Wake, followed by Councillor Getty.
Through the chair, further to my comments earlier about green shores, I think at a minimum, shouldn't we be referring this for comment to them and having our planning department consider what they come back with?
And through the chair, I mean, that would be up to council. I guess we typically don't refer variances to the conservancy, but we have referred, you know, council has referred applications to the conservancy. I think at our MOU, that's that's an option for council. I think I would suggest if council wants to refer to the conservancy, that you instead you amend the motion to not send it to the December 8th meeting, but send it to the 1st January meeting instead, to allow time for that referral to happen.
I'm going to go to Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor Fast.
For some reason, I was under the impression that they were asking for this as opposed to, asking for permission after it's been built. So that raises concerns, obviously, but I would find it helpful if I have no objection to this going out for comment to the neighbors, but I would like a little bit more of the background and history so that I can understand this better when it comes back to us in terms of, and I would also like to have some sort of input in terms of, it looks like it's a gigantic solid structure that my understanding, the little bit that I have heard about the Green Shores is that is ultimately undermining all of the land under it and around it. So that's something that I'd like to take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getty. Councillor Fast.
If we're referring this out to perhaps the Bowen Island Conservancy, may I request that whoever makes that motion also include our Parks, Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee deal with this kind of stuff too.
Okay, not seeing any further questions or comments. I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, raise your hand, say nay. And that carries with Councillor Wake in opposition. Moving on to item 8.2, Council Policy and Administrative Director Review and Updates. I will turn it over to our corporate officer. Yes.
I guess it's too late. I thought you were gonna move to refer it.
I will when it comes back.
Okay, thank you.
I was. Missed my spot.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, what was going on. Okay, thank you.
No apologies. We had a motion on the floor.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Over to our corporate officer.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Get to the infinity. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this report was postponed from the October 14th meeting, and since then, based on some feedback that I received from Council, I revised the approach slightly, and the CIO has agreed with this approach. This presentation provides an overview of the framework staff are using to review, update, and organize Council policies and administrative directives. This is one of Council's strategic initiatives being implemented in 2025, and work will continue on into next year. So first of all, I'm presenting this framework to keep Council informed of the work staff are currently undertaking to modernize and clarify Council policies and administrative directives. This will reduce risk by supporting defensible decision-making, and it's an ongoing cycle. So it's a living framework that will maintain and report on regularly. First things first, the Chief Administrative Officer has approved the Policy Development and Approval Directive AD001, which is attached in my report. It outlines which documents are considered Council policies and which are considered administrative directives. Council policies guide decisions of councils, set strategic direction, and usually have an external focus, whereas administrative directives guide decisions of staff, set operational direction, and usually have an internal focus. The separation is standard practice in municipalities across BC. Council sets the direction, whereas staff carry it out. Staff are already working on developing these administrative directives, as shown on the screen. For Councillor Jurgensen's benefit, that's Outdoor Spaces Inspection and Maintenance Directive, Water Distribution System Inspection and Maintenance Directive, Sanitary Sewer System Inspection and Maintenance Directive, as well as Drainage Assets Inspection and Maintenance Directive. Those are the high priority directives that are in development right now. And there are a few more that are identified as one as medium and the rest are as low priority.
Thank you.
These directives focus on core risk areas such as infrastructure maintenance and contract management, where clear direction helps prevent loss and liability. Council still has visibility into what's happening. It's just managed at the operational level with structured reporting and transparency. When new directives are approved, the CAO will ensure Council is informed. All administrative directives are available upon request, and that's by Council or the public. There are 27 Council policies that have not been reviewed or substantially updated in at least 3 years. They're listed here on the screen, but they're also in the staff report. Staff are currently reviewing these policies just to identify content that's out of date, overlapping into other governing documents, or could be modernized to reflect best practices in municipal governance. Staff will be looking at other municipalities' policies and toolkits available from the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, the LGMA, that's the Local Government Management Association, UBCM, Union of British Columbia Municipalities, and FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Staff will be reporting back to Council with recommendations to update these policies, and you'll note that that includes the correspondence policy that we just discussed today. Over time and before this administrative framework was developed, some internal or procedural matters were adopted as Council policies. Staff have identified 14 of these policies that deal with administrative or operational matters. Conversion of these policies to administrative directives simply classifies them appropriately and ensures accountability is exercised at the right level. Staff will be reviewing these policies and report back to Council with recommendations to convert them to administrative directives. If upon review, staff identify any changes that alter policy intent or strategic direction, they will seek Council direction. And there are 5 Council policies that have been identified that we need to develop. And these were either directed by Council resolution or internally as emerging issues arise. So staff will be drafting these policies and report back to Council for approval. One of those is the local area service funding policy that's currently in the public consultation phase. So just in summary, these 4 streams of the Council and administrative council policies and administrative directives review feed into the framework to bring our policies and directives up to date, so everything is clear, consistent, and easy to apply. It also gives us solid documentation that supports the decisions we make. By making sure council policies focus on the big picture and administrative directives guide day-to-day work, council can stay focused on strategy and staff with the clarity they need to implement it. So this isn't a one-time project. It's something we'll continue to maintain and report back on. The goal is to keep our policies relevant, reduce risk, and support a transparent, well-functioning municipality. And that's it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. I'll look to council for questions, starting with Councilor Getty.
This is really good. I don't know if this is mostly your work, Sophie, if you've had some backup from the other senior staff, but it's very, very good. We're going through much the same process with the governance committee with the trust, and I'm going to be referring your list and your categorization, the last few slides there, to our staff with the trust. I think it's very helpful. There's a couple of other manuals that we've been looking at in other jurisdictions, and I'll get you copies of those that lay it out in terms of making things really easy for people to understand what the policies are. But this dividing things up and the way that you've categorized things is really very good and very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Getty. Councilor Morse, followed by Councilor Fast. And Councilor Davis.
Okay, so my understanding is from talking with the corporate officer that the list that's under convert to administrative directives will not necessarily be posted on the website. Is that correct?
So according to the administrative directive that has been approved, so it has been our practice to post all council policies to the website. Administrative directors are available upon request from the public. But there's no reason why we can't post them directly to the website if that's how council wishes to proceed.
So to me, there's a difference between a policy and a procedure. And like, I'm looking at the filming on Bowen policy. Most of that is policy. And collection of fines is policy. How you go about collecting them might be different, but councils, if you're gonna take a policy, and it's exaggeration for the sake of effect, and say, well, we're not gonna bother collecting any fines that are $2,000 or more. That's council policy. And so I think council should approve all of these things. And then, but it's entirely up to, you know, staff to administer them. And if you just want a straight procedure that says, this is how you run the snowplow machine, then that's fine. That's nothing to do with us. But if there's anything that says this area gets better service than that area, service levels are a council policy. So I can't approve this the way it is right now. So I will be voting against this.
Thank you, Councilor Morse. Councilor Fast.
Thank you. I like this. Partly because after 25 years being a municipality, I think it's a good idea that this is timely now because council has a decision-making role, but it's limited. We're not in charge of everything, and we don't need to weigh in on everything. And I also think it's a matter of being efficient and just bringing us the things that are seen as that staff see or that the public sees as, or that council, we can bring things up that need changing or updating. But this list is growing, and I think it's right that we take a look at it in a framework and allow staff to take over most of the work, and that the council does the decisions on the things that need deciding on. I think that's our role now. Maybe it wasn't the same back even 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Okay. Secondly, I also agree this is good to lay it all out here. It's all present in the public now through this report. Everybody can see it, and I can see where everything is. It's all linked. This is great. This is like, oh, okay, I'm gonna bookmark this. So I can find things, and that's another part of this. A third, and that relates to my third point, which is this is good about keeping it up to date. The process of reviewing and keeping them up to date, I think, is something that's needed. And we should start. I mean, I think we've got some of our policies and things I think are good and up to date. And I read about other municipal policies and how they're like back from 1947. And I see that also in Islands Trust. There's some ancient policies in there. I'm kind of going, well, we have to live by this. That was a different way, a different time. Anyway, so I like the idea of pulling them together, having a look at them, keeping them up to date. And I support the motion. I'll be ready to make the recommendation when it's done.
Thank you, Councillor Fast. Councillor Jurgensen, followed by Councillor Nair.
First of all, I want to say I love how it's a framework and that's a living framework, not a one-time project. But I do share some of the same concerns as Councillor Morris as well. Overall, really like the project.
Jurgensen, Councillor Wick.
I think we can trust staff, if it is a situation where it's actually a policy, something, meaningful that is really changing. I think we can trust staff to bring that back to council. Just because it's a directive doesn't mean they have to go ahead and do it without bringing it back to council. So I think that's a safeguard, and I'll support this. I think it's great. And yeah, do we really need more things to be brought to us? No.
Thank you, Councillor Wick. I'm certainly supportive of the initiative. I know that the recommendation here today is just to receive for information. So I appreciate staff bringing this forward to us. And, I am sensitive to Councillor Morris's comments and some of these convert some policies to administrative directives. I think there might be some in there that, depending on how they get updated, it might end up being in council purview and or council wanting to retain control of it. For me, things like the bylaw services investigation policy, I feel like that's a council directive of how it would like its bylaws to be enforced. So, there might be some of these smaller issues that come back to us that might remain in the council policy purview. But this is a great start. We've got a policy landscape that when I go through them isn't consistent in format or language or organization or refers to positions and processes that municipalities grown out of or doesn't exist any longer. So I think this is a great piece to take on, and we're generally in the right ballpark. With that, I'll look to Councillor Morse to move the recommendations.
Councillor Fast.
Councillor Getty has
I don't know what is going on with me today.
Councillor
Councillor
Getty's
Getty's word.
Sorry, Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor Pyle.
Thanks. I thought that this was just setting up the framework for review and that it would all be coming back to us, that staff would have a good look at it and start organizing things and, getting things into different piles, and we'd have a chance to agree. I mean, if we're, the recommendation is to change a policy into directive, we have to make that decision. I don't think that's the CAO's role at this point. We want to give a bunch over to staff, but in terms of just, not clogging up, but, layering up all the things that we have to deal with at council table. And I think that this is a really good move, but it's the beginning stages, right? Everything has to come back.
I will look to our corporate officer to talk about process and next steps.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So this is laying out the framework and reporting to council on your strategic initiative. And next step, when staff undertake the review of both these policies and directives, we would return to council for any approval or change in direction or conversion at that time.
On that understanding, I'll be voting in favor.
And over to you, Councillor Fast.
Thank you. I'd just like to move the motion, the recommendation here that council receive the framework for staff to review, update, and develop council policies and administrative directives as outlined in the report updated October 28, 2025 for information.
Moved by Council Fast, seconded by Council Wake. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that carries with Councillor Morris in opposition.
Our information is not clear.
Moving on to 8.3, third quarter financial report, we have our CFO, Kristen Watson, joining us.
Thank you through the mayor to the rest of council. Today I'm bringing forward, it's the second quarter. However, being that it's coming a little bit late to you just due to capacity constraints. I apologize for that. I did pull the data for 2 weeks into October. So just to get it as updated for you as I possibly could. I have prepared quite a lengthy report kind of to detail kind of line by line, category by category, where we're coming up with variances from our budget. The key things that I would like for you to take away on the revenue side are that we are expecting lower investment income. This is within the general fund. We do earn investment income in our reserve funds, which stay within the reserve funds, but this is the investment income allocated to the general fund. Is looking like it will be lower by almost $100,000 than budgeted. We also are expecting some lower revenue in some grant revenues. But much of this is going to be offset by additional income that we are expecting from increased building inspection fees, wharf fees, and recreation revenue, all budgeted, all expected to be higher than budget. As well, we did have an unexpected receipt of a one-time payment from BC Ferries for $50,000, which was contributed to the municipality to help offset our additional costs that we have incurred as a result of the ferry marshalling program this year. From the operations side of things, I would like to draw your attention to a large underspend variance in the bylaw services. One contributing factor to this is a one-time billing of an invoice back to a property owner for services that were provided to their property. And that was, the work was done in the year of 2024, and we have billed the invoice and added it to the collection roll in 2025. So the revenue side of that, we are netting against the expenses that we incurred in order to perform the work. Another significant variance, of course, comes in the strategic planning line item. So those are related to things like our OCP project, for example. We did budget to spend the full $144,000 on this project this year, and to date, we're only probably going to spend about 80 this year, and the rest of the expenses will be deferred to next year. So those strategic items, they're things that we plan to do all in this year. However, with the timing and the way that the projects tend to roll out, sometimes there is a lag in those expenditures, and they'll get moved to next year, the balance of expenditures. In the parks budget, we do have some savings there. Drawing your attention back to the time when the budget was approved, we did keep the expenditure line item in there for additional park staffing, which council did not approve for us to go ahead and hire. However, those savings from that unexpended line item are going to be contributed to our accumulated surplus at the end of this year. And lastly, facility management, we do look to have some significant savings in that budget line item. And then that is tied directly to the later than anticipated opening of this facility. Other things on our accumulated operating surplus. So we look like, if I am correct in my projections from here to the end of the year, it looks like we should end the year with about $200,000 surplus, more than what we had anticipated. We do budget for zero surplus, but I think that we'll probably end the year with about a $200,000 surplus. So that's coming from those savings on the operation side, netted against the the underreported revenues that we anticipate that will make. On the capital side, the multi-use path, the latest phase of that multi-use path project is complete. That total cost is expected to be about $262,000 under budget. We did receive $601,000 in TransLink funding for that. We have applied for use of $464,000 of active transportation grant funding. We did receive $66,000 in funding from another federal grant, so that leaves the municipality to fund the final section of $198,000. So that is coming in significantly under budget. We're pleased to see that. And I do have a list of our progress on other capital projects here. The Blue Water Park, the roads piece for that project. We did have $661,000 in our initial budget approved for roads expenditures. The final costs, they're almost all billed and complete and paid for, but they are final costs on that roads expenditure is looking at about $889,000. So it looks like we ended up needing about $228,000 more, and council did provide a resolution where they did approve additional use of roads and infrastructure funds up until $250,000. So that additional expenditures coming in within that allowed for pocket that should we need to do a budget amendment by year end, I'll bring that forward early in the new year. Once all the costs are in from all of the expenditures on the capital fund. So I just wanted to provide this report to you to let you know that the anticipated revenues and expenditures to date are in line with our expectations, and I'm not aware of any extraordinary financial events that you should be aware of at this point in the year.
The CFO, Councilor Morris, followed by Councilor Saunders.
Just one clarification. So the 2025 actual year to date is October 15th.
Yes.
And one follow-up. I understand the library has been closed due to flooding. Is that going to cause us some concern that how much we have to spend to fix the problem?
I do believe that there's likely we're going to have to replace the carpet in a section of the library, and that was going to be their budget request for 2026. So the timing on that is actually quite convenient. And we are looking at potentially some repairs to some drywall in 2 areas of the building, but we've got dehumidifiers in that building now. And there is a carpet installer in there today to look to deal with the problem. So we will, once we get a quote for the drywall work, we can keep you updated on that. We did have $200,000 of library building maintenance costs budgeted for in the 2025 budget. We had not gone ahead and done that work, so there is budget approval to spend if needed.
Councilor Saunders, followed by Councilor Fias.
Thank you, the chair. In the operating expenses, just a quick thing, the facility management indicated year to date was much lower than expected, but solely because of the late opening. But is it in line with like if it had opened when it should, have we budgeted the right amount, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think we've been very generous in our budgeting for facility. Lee and I are working together to work on the 26 operations expense, and I think that we have probably allowed more than required. We try to be conservative. We don't like surprises at the end of the year. So even given the timing of it, I think we've also over provisioned for the cost of.
Thank you.
Councilor Fias.
Just if anybody wants more info about the library, let me know. Board members have been taking down their fans and bringing them in to help dry out everything. So it's a group effort, keeps the cost down. Thank you.
Councilor Jurgensen.
I just wanted to, through the chair, thank CFO for the report.
Thank you. And with that, I'll look for a motion to receive, please. Moved by Councilor Saunders, seconded by Councilor Jurgensen. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to 8.4, Knick-Knack Nook, fundraising memorandum of understanding. We have our CFO joining us here today. Perhaps we could get the recommendation on the floor right away, just to move things along. Counselor Fast?
Yeah, I'll move that council direct staff to sign a memorandum of understanding MOU with the Knick-Knack Nook Reuse It Society to assist with fundraising for the construction of a new replacement building at the Bowen Island Recycling Depot site.
Moved by Counselor Fast, seconded by Counselor Jurgensen. Any questions from the CFO or debate on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to correspondence 9.1, Natalie Grew, Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society regarding request for council support of BC Coastal Marine Strategy. Can I have someone move the recommendation, please? And then
Councillor Fast.
I want to say Counselor Fast, but Counselor Jurgensen was so enthusiastic with his hand.
Shall I?
Wait for it.
Okay. I move that council directs the mayor or requests the mayor to urge the provincial government to enshrine the BC Coastal Marine Strategy into law.
Seconded by Counselor Jurgensen. Any questions, comments, or discussions? Not seeing any. Is that to motivate on the motion? Or were you
Discussion.
excited to vote? Okay, discussion. Counselor Fast, followed by Counselor Morse.
I just wanted to let people know that this is in line with lots of work that the Islands Trust has been doing over many years towards urging the province to both create a coastal marine strategy and to bring it into law. The most recent is on the website at April 2023. Is a response from the chair of the Islands Trust to the province with input. They were asked for feedback. We're Bowen Islands, part of the Islands Trust, and this also came to AVICC, you might remember, April 2025. So there's been lots of work over many years towards this. There's a strategy in place now. It needs to be brought into regulation so it can take effect. Thank you.
Counselor Fast, Counselor Morse.
I'm totally in favor of the whole project. I'm just wanting to, is it going to be clear in the letter that this is a council resolution? Direction of council, because it seems to me it's stronger if it's the mayor writing on behalf of council. And it does say that council directs the mayor to urge.
The language in the letter that I'm urged to write as a result of this recommendation would certainly stipulate that it's at the behest of councils. I think there's strength in sending it on behalf of the body as opposed just on to being under my
And it may be a stronger word than urge.
demand fervently.
That works. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not seeing any further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Thank you. 9.2, Angela Marie McDougall, Battered Women's Support Services regarding request for municipal engagement on gender-based violence dated October 21st, 2025. Is there someone willing to make a recommendation on that correspondence? Councilor Fast.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea, integrated survivor-centered approach. I thought Councillor Getty might do this, but she's gone. So I move that council invite representatives of Battered Women's Support Services to a delegation before council.
Moved by Councilor Fast, seconded by Councilor Jurgensen. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to 9.3, Erica Olson, the Cats in the House Sound Marine Stewardship Initiative regarding letter to respond, DFO's engagement on proposed marine refuges dated November 3rd, 2025.
I'll move.
I move the council send a letter to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada providing feedback on the proposed marine refuges in the Cats and House Sounds. Seconded by Councilor Fast. Any further discussion on this item? Councilor Morse.
It's just a process thing. I think it's fully supportive of, but what's the feedback that's going to go back?
That would also be my question.
Is it Erica's letter or is it a letter providing positive support for the proposed marine refugees?
Councilor Fast.
If you look down in that item, there near the end, down near page 135, there's a draft letter. And I expect, and it's all laid out there, and I was going to suggest to the mayor that he might switch the bottom little succinct asks at the bottom up to the top of the letter. And there's a draft there to work from Marine reference guide folks, and I'll get some house sound and all the working groups that I'm on.
So that was my question. I read the letter, but are we sending Eric a letter or is it just to be support for the proposed marine refuges?
It would be a letter from council, so it would mirror much of the same content, I believe, as the draft letter that's in our agenda. I might wordsmith a few parts here and there, but the content and substance would substantially be the same. Councilor Lee.
I was just concerned, and my question to Mr. Taylor was, I was, actually, no, it's not, but, I was wondering if there was a connection between these two, the one for the, Parks and Wilderness Society and our local one for Calcium House Sound. But it sounds like we need both these things, so I just wondered if they were integrated in all, which they don't seem to be.
Maybe I'll invite Mr. Taylor to provide some.
Yeah, Erica asked me to attend because she couldn't make it. So there's two separate processes underway. One that you're talking about right now is the Fisheries and Oceans process to look at. Originally, they were going to align the rockfish conservation areas with the grassland reef closures. They realized it became a little bit too involved in the time they had. So now it's looking at creating marine refuges to where the two protections overlap. So the motion at the moment is related to a letter to DFO supporting the changes to marine conservation areas. The previous letter from was it CPAWS or Georgia Strait Alliance was about the BC government's coastal marine strategy, which is the provincial government taking some responsibility and interest in the near shore ecosystems and estuaries and things like that. So they're complementary, but they're separate.
Thank you.
Councilor Fast.
The parts that are in the draft letter, I'm looking at the bottom of page 111 and 112. There's 6 distinct points that we could ask for, and that would really help. They're about outfits from Howe Sound, and they're about these marine refuge boundaries, identify priority sites for restoration, address known threats, those kinds of things. So it's all here in the draft. Page 111 and 112 is the most significant part.
And as background, the Marine Stewardship Initiative has the Marine Planning Circle that Sue Ellen's part of. A number of organizations have supplied information about local stuff. The local First Nations have been involved in those conversations. They'll be submitting their own letters under their own processes, but there's been a lot of background work from other local groups in the area, just trying to share and come up with a somewhat united response for those who are interested.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'm not seeing any further comments except for Councilor Morris.
Well, my curiosity question when I was looking at the map. The old version had an area around Paisley and a little bit of an area off, I guess, looks like Blue Water area.
Yeah.
And the new one doesn't have.
So there's no changes proposed to those areas. What happened partway through the process is DFO did science up in Jervis Inlet and realized that the areas that they wanted to protect weren't quite the right areas. So they changed the focus to let's just focus on the sponge type areas and combine the rockfish work. We would like to see the expansion of the area around Paisley because it includes some important habitat, but I think DFO is working on a tight timeline and a budget cut. And come March 31st, some of the contract staff that are working on these type of projects may no longer be with them. So they're just looking at getting this through the stakeholder consultation process and then reassessing things in the future, beyond the.
So there's
last country.
no change being proposed.
No change. So what's in the thing is the current version of what they're asking, and it's been through the discussions with the recreational fishing groups, with the commercial fishing lobby, et cetera. So it's a simpler version, not as much as we'd like, but it's still a step in the right direction from a conservation standpoint.
Okay, not seeing any further questions or comments. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Thank you for your patience for being here today.
Okay, I got to do work on my phone, and I'm very grateful that you guys are taking an interest in the ocean. I will be coming back to talk to you guys about the Dorn Point glass sponge reef, because I'd like to request a rezoning for sensitive habitat, just so it's on the map.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, 11.1, appointment to Arts on Bowen Board of Directors. We have Arts on Bowen has invited Councillor Tim Wake to serve as a non-voting member of the Board of Directors. Therefore, be it resolved that Council appoint Councillor Tim Wake to the Arts on Bowen Board of Directors as a non-voting liaison. Councillor Ferguson to move that.
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Moved by Councillor Saunders. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Morse.
I'm not having a problem with the appointment. My problem is with the process.
Sure.
I think if the Hearth wished to have a council member sitting as a non-voting liaison, which I think is a good idea, they should have come to us and asked us to appoint a member. Not, and we probably would have appointed Councillor Wake, but the process is not.
Okay.
And I think maybe somebody should draw that to the attention of the Hearth, that they should have come to council to ask council to appoint a member. Not come and say we want to have X.
That will be something for our new council liaison to bring up with that Board of Directors.
And just for a little context, this came out of Councillor Getty and I had an early meeting with Samantha Brett, the new coordinating and production coordinator, whatever. And we just suggested that maybe it would be an idea for better communication to have a member of council on the board. And I will let them know that what the proper procedure is.
Councillor Wake, been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Moving along to new business in 11.2, update to council on Metro Vancouver business. Just in time for Halloween, the zombie specter of camping on Bowen Island reared itself again, as some folks have gotten letters on or heard a radio piece about. It stems from a report that was tabled at the Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meeting last week that discussed camping and was seeking to identify in the most preliminary terms what opportunities for siting existed there. Crippen Park was listed as one of 12 sites, I believe, where group camping could potentially be located. For context, Metro Vancouver owns 8 camping sites, some of which are actually owned by other folks and simply contracted it out. And the reports, just for clarity to the community, was only one that was proposed and was simply received for information. So there was no concrete action taken. And Bowen was one of a dozen sites for group camping in a portfolio of probably a couple dozen sites where potential camping could be identified. I think after the volume of what we heard in the community in the first couple of years of the term, it would be safe to say that any discussion on camping on Bowen Island would certainly come to the council table at an open meeting and well discussed. But I cannot imagine that the Regional Parks Committee or the Metro Vancouver Board of Directors or senior leadership of Metro Vancouver or this council is in a
Acquisitive?
is overly excited about bringing that conversation back to Bowen Island again when there's other potential sites for them to look at. So Again, nothing approved. It was only a preliminary staff report that identified potential sites, and it was received for information. So there's no current plans to secretly bring camping in on Bowen Island. And I thought it was a nice Halloween prank for that to be out in the media. Councilor Getty.
Sorry, one of the questions that was raised at the open house is that if this were to get any kind of legs on it at all, it would have to come to council as a rezoning application again, right?
I mean, we would have to look at the specifics of it, but I would believe there'd be a rezoning and an OCP amendment that would need to go through.
Thanks. Okay.
And to be clear, there's been no discussion either at a political level or a staff level in any way, even a preliminary one, about pursuing camping in Crippen. It's also worth noting that Metro Vancouver has just recently opened the Davies Orchard and looking at their operations there. So there's more than enough on Bowen to keep them occupied right now. There's still upgrades and work that's being done at Dorman Point, continue to make that more accessible to the public. And Metro Vancouver is very sensitive about their public image right now. So anything that would be substantially controversial, I can't imagine they would be looking to pursue at this point in time. That's Metro Vancouver. TransLink, we haven't had any TransLink meetings in the last couple of weeks. There are some coming up, so I will update those as they move forward. And I'll look to our Islands trustees for an update on Islands Trust business, starting with Councillor Fast here.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few things quickly. Financial Planning Committee meets on Wednesday. I'm the chair. I can tell you that the amount slated for Bowen has gone down a little bit already, but it's from 33% to 31% increase so far. And that's partly because changes are proposed for the Islands Trust Conservancy, but there's a long list of changes, and I can refer people to the Financial Planning Committee agenda, which is on the website. And but you know, already the amounts are starting to come down. So we'll be looking at that, and we'll be looking specifically, the Financial Planning Committee is looking both at decreasing costs. So we're looking at taking more of the Trust Council meetings online, for example. We keep proposing it. So far it hasn't passed. And also at raising revenues. They're looking at increasing the price for permits, so that they're supposed to cover 100% of the cost, but they don't, and they know that. So we'll be looking into that, and I'll probably be pointing them to Bowen's example, because we've done that more recently than they have. Also coming up on Thursday is the First Nations webinar that some of us who are interested are getting special training, 2 workshops, full days, principles, engagement with Indigenous people. And so that'll be a couple of them this year, a couple of them early next year. I believe Councillor Getty said when she can tell us if she is. And I just want to let people know there's a webinar coming up on the 19th, and it's about species at risk and how to find them and protect them and steward them on your property. And I encourage everybody to partake and register for the online webinar, the educational webinars that the Trust also provides.
Just a question on the budget, because it feels like every year we're looking at double-digit tax increases from the Trust. I'm curious if there's any insight as to what the 5-year plan is for tax increases in the Trust. You know, when I look back at our statement of financial information, I believe in 5 years ago in 2020, we were paying about $300,000 to the Trust. And if 30% goes through, we're looking at, you know, a significant increase to about $500,000 just over the span of 5 years. What's that going to look like 5 years out from now? And where are those discussions headed?
Well, one of the things I can point people to is financial in the agenda. Anyway, I'll send some links later. But one of the points is it sounds like a big increase, but it's a small amount. You know, so for our household, I think it would be like a $15 difference over last year. So because, and it's all run by a kind of black box algorithm that has to do with the percentage of the property taxes that come from Beaumont. And we pay higher property taxes here than all of the other islands do. And we don't participate in a lot of the other services. We're mostly focused on the Islands Trust Conservancy and the Federation of Islands, the co-op kind of regional group thing together. So those two things mean that when one staff position changes, it can mean a big looking jump, but the actual costs are low. I believe it's what was the Islands Trust was 1% of the anyway, we can ask more our financial planning chief financial officer, sorry, trying to go between two organizations.
Right.
But yeah, there's significant, the Islands Trust Conservancy's system of refuges is growing. And that's Singing Woods Nature Reserve, the different nature reserves we've got here on Bowen Island are 3 of them, and several conservation covenants. It is growing over time, and so far we have been unable to convince the province to bring more money. Right now, the province chips in 2% of the costs to Islands Trust, the same as if it was is it 2% or 12%? I forget something, but it's equivalent to a regional, regional district. And yet the work is very different, and the work is growing. And the work is for all of the citizens of British Columbia. Like, is it really fair to charge all of that work to the taxes of island dwellers? You know, anyway, so there's a bunch of questions and work that needs to be added, but hopefully once we get through the big trust policy statement, and then we'll find out more what kind of public support and we've got. Right now, it's looking like good public support, but of course, tax time is different. And I see Trustee Getty's hands up.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up on that, I would like to get to the question of sustainability of it. You know, if the 5-year plans of the trust are contemplating 20 to 30% tax increases on Bowen Island, you know, yes, it's a small amount, but if Metro Vancouver is a much smaller amount, and if we were to see 20 to 30% increases from Metro Vancouver as the regional district, I mean, there would be, I think, some serious consternation in the community, or even TransLink, which, you know, we pay about 3 times to. And there's the, you know, the question of, like, if any of those bodies raised by 30%, the actual dollar amount on the household wouldn't be large, but there would be a needing to quantify the level of service and getting what we're getting out of that. You know, so what I'd like to hear from the trust, and I'm happy to reach out to them, and you know, I don't want to pin it both on our trustees here, because I know that you're part of a larger entity. But the feedback that I have is really one of sustainability for the trust. If we're going to be seeing these high double-digit tax increases over the next 5 years, I mean, there's really a question of sustainability of the trust generally. And I think, to your point of, you know, why are we funding them? You know, why is Bowen Island disproportionately funding an amenity that's supposed to be targeted to the residents of the entire province?
I'll bring more info
Okay.
after the meeting next week.
Okay.
And see Trustee Getty's hands up.
Trustee Getty.
Yeah, I think that the problem that I've always had with figuring out the trust numbers is that, you know, it's a comparison of apples and oranges, or, you know, apples and cantaloupes. The 33% increase in terms of the parts of the trust that I mean, it's really hard to compare it to a regional district because we don't pay for planning, we don't pay for the bylaw enforcement, we don't pay for very much of the litigation, which is a very high expense, and, you know, a couple of other things that we're not part of. So in terms of the 33% of the trust budget, it looks and sounds horrendous. And that gets my back up in terms of, why are we paying so much? But it turns out that it's 33% of, what is less than half of all of the expenses, like about a third of all the expenses. So it's one of these calculations in terms of our terms of agreement with the trust, what we pay for and what we pay for as a municipality. So the reason why it actually turns out to be a very small amount per household, and probably a very small amount in terms of our budget calculations, it might be, I think last year it was something like a 5% increase, which was basically a cost of living, as opposed to what it looked like on the paper with the trust calculations being 24%. So it's one of those things that all of your comments and, looking at it from a 5-year perspective and sustainability and, the burden on Bowen, both in terms of tax base and we do suffer from the having the best house prices in the trust. And Salt Spring has all sorts of other complaints in terms of their representation for 10,000 people and only having 2 trustees and all the rest of it. But all of those kinds of arguments and concerns are what we spend a whole lot of time on arguing. And there's the 2 of us on the Sue Ellen got voted in as the chair, and then I get to represent as the governance committee. So we do everything we possibly can to work on this and bring it down. And it's very hard to explain. And the 33% is a very scary number, but it doesn't actually work out to be that in terms of the percentage in our budget. So we'll have to figure out a better way of explaining it. But we are very, very, very careful in terms of making sure that we're only paying for the things that we benefit from.
Councillor Getty, Councillor Morris, followed by Councillor Saunders.
I just want to make it very clear that the initial cut on the budget, when you add the 3 numbers together, it's $621,180. Last year it was $460,000. So it's a big increase in total, and we could fix an awful lot of potholes for $621,000. And I know how the process works inside and out. And the biggest thing that's growing, well, they got added a governance committee, so we're now paying for some of that. That wasn't there a few years back. And is the Trust Conservancy. And all of those assets belong to the province. So why are we paying for them?
I think it's an argument that we need to have with the province in terms of their 180,000 contribution that has been stagnant for the last 20 years. And they don't, that doesn't begin to cover the Conservancy, which is gathering assets for them. But that's another argument in the trust.
Councillor Getty, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you. Through the chair, I appreciate that we have 2 trustees that certainly have our best interests at hand here, but I'm kind of echoing the thoughts of the mayor in terms of this sustainability and understanding what the long-range plan is, and hearing that, and it was Councillor Fast used these words, but it's kind of been echoed in this entire conversation, is it's a black box. Well, that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence without everybody knowing, what's inside the black box kind of thing. And the other point being, and I know everybody understands this, but $15 each, well, no, it's not much, but 15 and then 15 and then 15, pretty soon you're talking about some real money. It does matter. $15 matters to a lot of people. So I don't think anybody was trying to just toss out and say it's not important. I don't want to go down that road. That's not what happened. I'm just saying it is important. The sustainability and the long-term plan is important. And I appreciate that we've got 2 trustees that are working towards that. And I would encourage them to continue to, fight for our interests, the interests of people on this island. Thank you.
Okay, anything that you'd like to, or was your update?
I'm done.
Okay, over to you, Councillor Getty.
Thank you. So the only thing that I would add, I was going to talk about the reconciliation and the stewardship session that's coming up. The governance committee is met last month and we agree, or last week, and we agreed to the recommendations of trust council in terms of priorities. And we're now starting to go through the same process that Sophie was explaining about categorizing policies and figuring out how to get them in some sort of manageable order. And it's a big push from UBCM and in terms of risk management to have your policies all sorted out and easy for people to find and understand. And yeah, we're going to carry up your message in terms of sustainability. That's a big part of our corporate planning, which is also on the top 3 priorities.
Thank you, Councilor Getty. I'm not seeing any further questions. We'll move on to question period. I will look to throngs in the gallery and online if there's questions here that they would like to have answered. Not seeing any, and with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councilor Jurgensen, seconded by Councilor Saunders. All in favor, raise your hand. Aye.
Darn.
You get the Zoom link, Councilor
I tried.